Doesn't he go hunting?
Yeah, he crawls on his belly.
Okay. I mean, it's vicious.
I know.
There is. It's not worse than he says. It's not worse than he says. Once they're visible, everybody picks up. Oh, you're talking about the range bulls. What's his name? They steal it.
I'm going to be deaf tonight. Spent 8 hours pounding rock. The city's funny about burying in water lines. This one is only 36 inches deep and never froze.
Is that right? It had pavement over it?
Grass, didn't freeze, lead line, old lead water.
Oh, expanded.
They won't let us put it back to 36 inches. So, 3 hours later,
Never froze.
I got a pile of rubber.
Because it's lead.
You can make me stand up.
Why?
You hurt tired? No. You tired? Ready?
Countdown to start.
A box of stuff here, I should have brought. Box of stuff. They got all that things to feed me. Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll begin our regular meeting September 14th, 2016. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ann, would you give us the roll call?
John Brewer,
Here.
Kathy Jordan,
Here.
Art Christie, John Horn,
Here.
Joanne Cow,
Here.
Alan Shiner,
Here.
Clifford Bookout.
Here.
Everybody turn their microphones on so we can be heard on the channel. Okay, has everybody had time to read the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Any corrections and revisions? Okay, motion to accept the minutes?
I so move.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay. Communications, we haven't received anything. Anything of the educational classes coming up for me?
Just the one I left in your folder last week, or last month.
Do we have a tally of what credits we all have?
Yeah. Starting from January,
So, keep honest when you see somebody falling behind.
yeah.
Okay, let's start out with old business. I'm asking that we do Mrs. Zirinsky, Mr. Wadinsky. Actually, Wadinsky's got to get a. Doesn't Wadinsky have to get a zoning variance before he comes before us?
He's going to need a variance for his buildings.
Yeah.
So his site plan basically, he can't approve without the variance because of where the building's located.
You didn't send it to the ZBA.
Yeah.
I saw him the other day, even that. Actually, he said,
So,
Don
Mr. Zirinsky, Mr. Wadinsky, and Art. I'd like to do those if if it's okay with the board, in a row, because I don't have to keep getting up around the bench. So, is that agreeable?
Here.
Okay. So we'll start out with Mr. Zirinsky. You don't have copies, but if you don't, I have some here. Any copies? Planning board has sent Mr. Zirinsky to the zoning board for a variance, which he received at their last meeting. So we're here tonight to ask for a public hearing to be set up. Or no, there's no public hearing for this. This is a boundary line adjustment. We just do those for subdivisions. So we're here to ask approval of this boundary line adjustment.
I move we approve the adjustment.
Excuse me 1 minute. Why is there no public hearing?
Because we never had a public hearing when we do a boundary line adjustment.
But it's really not a boundary line adjustment. It's, he's cutting off part of his property and selling it.
No, we start with two properties and we end with two properties. So boundary, just we're moving the boundary line adjustment.
All right.
If we were having any, if we had 2 lots and we ended up with 3 lots, and yeah, then we need a public hearing, or, yeah. If there's any other kind of adjustment like that, but if, we've always said, and, you know, all the ones I can remember that we've done, we've never had.
Well, I'm only confused because last time when you weren't at the meeting, you talked to me on the phone and said this will be calling for a public hearing. And then it didn't happen because Art said to me, there's other stuff here that I don't understand, let's wait, let's table it till the next meeting. So that's my only confusion.
Wadinsky's needs a public hearing.
Yeah, but I didn't talk to you about that, I talked to you about Zielinski.
Who else is impacted? Besides these 2 property owners, who else is impacted by this change?
Nobody. Because the right-of-way is still the right-of-way, the people back there still will always have use of the right-of-way.
So the purpose of a public hearing is for others who would be impacted by it or feel that they might to be heard, right? So I guess my point is, at a public hearing, what would be heard that we don't already know?
It's just a line between these 2 people that these 2 people both agree on what they want to do. Mr. McLeod does not want that strip. If you've been out there and looked at it, you can see why. It really doesn't, it's not really part of his, you know, when you look at his property, it doesn't even look like it belongs to his property.
So you're calling it a lot line adjustment?
Yeah.
I've never been able to find things in the town code.
I can agree with that.
For public
because
hearings with lot line.
We're not creating a new lot.
Subdivision, site plan, where it has a definite impact on the residents. This, like Don said, we have 2 lots, we still have 2 lots. The only thing it affects is the 2 people who are involved, since they're not changing the right of way across that piece of property. So whoever's behind it still has, you know, as far as they're concerned, they're still going the same way. It's just supposedly going to be better maintained.
Okay.
I it says lot line here, we don't have lot line adjustment in the,
I've been through it twice, so.
but it says a lot line, the line dividing one premises from another, from a street or from another public space. So I think that this is a lot line adjustment since we're not creating a third lot. We're not making it.
Some towns call it lot line adjustment, some towns call it a lot line revision.
And there, the lot, this line is the line that's between the two lots, so it's just a difference. So I would call it lot line. What do you think, Joanne? Yes?
Yeah,
So there's a
I was
motion?
just confused because that's not what Sean told me the first round of this, that's why I was.
Well, often we think things.
Okay.
So right now, there's a motion,
Yes?
I made a motion to approve the lot line.
second?
I'll second that.
Can we do a roll call?
Mhm.
John Brewer? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
Recused.
looking right at you. Okay, Alan Shiner,
Yes.
Art Christie,
Yes.
Joanne Kell,
Yes,
Cliff Rebocco,
Yes.
John Moore,
Yes.
And
Kathy Jordan. She wasn't done yet.
she wasn't.
We started early.
Yes.
Well, I did her last.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get their signatures and drop it off at the town hall for you. Sign.
I'll be there early for next week.
everything okay with you?
You know, our-
I don't see any reasons. It's right, it's a matter of all.
Okay, next is, Mr. Art, next, or?
Yeah. I have to come around the other side, I'm gonna explain what's going on.
Anyone need a map of the art property?
Yeah. Right.
This also went to the zoning board.
They approved it.
They approved. Even a variance.
And
There's two of them.
that variance was called an area variance?
Yes. No, we just,
Okay, Ron did the maps on this, the subdivision map, so that's why he's on the other side of the bench. I'm representing Reggie Opp, I call her Reggie Hall. But she's an older woman, she lives in Woodland Valley. She's been there for many years. They bought the property in 1964. It's in Grandview Acres. They're all undersized lots, non-conforming lots. Very, very small lots. And she had put two lots together, and her husband had built a house on a second lot for their son. And thinking that their son would be taking care of them as they got older and got into the older years. The son since passed away, and then her husband passed away in September of 2015. And it's just too much for her to keep now. One is maintained, and two, it's a financial burden for her. So what she'd like to do is, she'd like to go almost back to the original lines, close, but sell the house that they built. She's gonna stay in the original house. These lots are still conforming with the area. Actually, they're still bigger than some of the lots that are there. And I've given the board letters from adjacent neighbors. They're all in favor of it, and you don't see any issue that could take place. The only issue that did arise when I started doing some research was the well is on our property and it's a shared well. The condition is that when she sells the other house, a new well will be drilled and they're not going to be sharing the same well. They both have their own independent septic fields. They both have their own independent driveways. And when you drive through the area of Grandview Acres, it just looks like two separate houses on two separate lots anyway. There's no issues with variances or setbacks other than the fact that we went to the zoning board because we are creating an undersized lot, which is in harmony with the subdivision anyway.
Okay. Here's my problem. Okay. This property was bought and combined, which made it come into compliance when it did, because it's an R 1.5 area.
That's right.
That is the goal of the planning board.
That's right.
Right. The problem I have with this is that years back, when Neil Grant allowed people to build a home on their property for a family member,
Correct.
which I know is a law that went to the town board, but it's nowhere in the book. Because I looked through the whole book, I can't find it. That I don't think it was his intention that someday these people would divide the lot again and sell off that property. I don't think that was the intention.
No, it wasn't. It was not their intention either.
All right, but the other problem is now, this is the second time we are creating lots that are undersized in the last 2 months. And to me, it's setting a dangerous precedent. That's the problem I have with it.
And I agree with everything you said.
Now, the variance here says a modification of the use of area within the bulk regulations, blah, blah, blah. Literal application and strict enforcement would result in, if it would result in undue hardship or practical difficulty that would deprive the owner of reasonable use of the land or structure. So that's why we have variances. But such unnecessary hardship or practical difficulty shall not be construed to include mere inconvenience or a desire to make money.
Right.
And that's what this is.
Well, I agree with everything you said, Joanne.
Okay.
Other than the fact that these lots are totally surrounded by lots that are all non-conforming. When the subdivision was done, it was done by a gentleman named Lou Hallenbeck, and Lou created subdivisions according to what the people could afford. If someone came up from the city and they had $1,000 to buy a lot, he'd sell them something 40 by 60 feet.
Okay.
If they had $2,000 to buy, then he sold them something 80 by 120 feet.
Was this before zoning?
This was before and up to.
Okay.
And up to zoning. And still, there are people buying lots in there and that are non-conforming. It's the nature of the subdivision.
Right, because I did look it up, and this was originally 2 small lots, and most of them all around are small
The
lots.
lots across the street on both sides are smaller than either one of those lots.
Okay.
You know, Don, do you have the map of the subdivision with you by any chance? Because that will explain that we're not doing anything out of the ordinary for the subdivision, the existing subdivision. And it still meets all the requirements and setbacks and everything else.
Yeah, I realize that, but you know what my problem is. This is happening now too often in front of us. It's coming too often in front of us. And you have to remember that about a year ago, Vance Hyde, she came before us with her parents' property on Hoffman Road in Woodbury. 4 houses on one piece of property, and we could not subdivide that property for her so she could sell it as 4 parcels because we could not make substandard lots. And that was a financial hardship for her. She wanted to make more money by selling 4 properties, so she sold 1. So I don't want this to come back to the town.
I understand.
Because, I mean, she could turn around and come back here and say, hey, you didn't do it for me.
Right away, as you mentioned, I was on the board and involved.
At that time, yes.
When we did that. Also, when we did the one where we changed the law where if you have a piece of property and you want to build a second house on it for a family residence,
Right.
that is now permitted, providing that it meets the requirements of the setbacks and whatever.
Right, I know
So
that.
that was Mr. and Mrs. Hardwood.
Right.
And if you've been up to their property, that change in the law was a complete success. It's wonderful. It's
What, the
very-
one in the back there?
Yeah,
In the back?
it's beautiful. I mean, they've done a
I've been
wonderful
up there,
job.
yeah.
And it's a family situation. They take good care of each other as well as, you know.
But you see, that's what my concern is.
I can understand that. And I would probably see it the exact same way you're seeing it if it wasn't surrounded by undersized lots. You know? So the hardship here is that she's an elderly lady, but it also conforms to the surrounding environment and the surrounding lots. I mean, some of these lots are
I see some of them are really small.
pathetically small. You
Yeah.
you wonder how they got the distance between the well and the septic field. So,
All right, I just wanted to get that out there because this has been weighing on my mind since the workshop.
okay.
And I did a little investigating on it, and, you know, all these other things then came up in my mind about how we have denied variance or subdivision to people in the not too distant past.
Right.
You know, it's not like it was, 10 years ago.
Right.
So I'm just letting you know that.
And I just want to point out that I'm helping this lady. I'm not being paid. I'm not, this is not a job for me. She's an older woman, and she's been an asset to the community for many years, and I'm just trying to help her.
All right, and I just want to be sure that everyone knows on the board that this is really not right.
Well, it's right in the sense that it conforms to the neighborhood. I mean, that's the major factor.
Yeah, but we're here to uphold what's in this book.
I understand that, but
Yeah. I believe that if you look in the Andersons, that you'll find situations that if a variance has been issued for an area, for example, buildings, as we know, that don't meet a setback. If you're looking down Main Street, Phoenicia, and the setback's 50 feet, and every building's 15 feet,
Right.
they can give a variance for that same
15
thing,
feet, right.
for 15 feet, because it's an existing situation that's environmental. It's,
Right.
it's the house.
But I just want to be sure that everyone on the board knows that that's what our job is. We're supposed to try to bring all the lots into town up to code.
Right.
And if we can do that, we do that. We're not supposed to go the other way. That's all.
So what do we do in a situation like this, where there's so many non-conforming lots?
There's nothing we could do. They were cut up like that before zoning.
Right.
Yeah, those are all non-conforming pre-existing lots, and what can you do?
Yeah.
You can't go back, before zoning.
And I sympathize. I realize that this is a hardship for the,
Mhm.
and she,
She actually
Can't
has some
afford
of the
to.
bigger lots.
That's right, that's right. The
She's
lots
relative-
that, lots
She has
that
one
we're
of the,
making, Kathy.
two of the larger lots in that relatively.
and which one is she
close.
keeping? Lot
You
one?
want the well.
One for one. But that's this one here that says shed.
Yes, see,
lot two has,
Lot two?
see it says well on it? There's W in there.
yeah, lot two.
To me, the alternative is to keep an undesirable situation. I mean, I don't know, I don't agree with what you're saying, Joanne. It's, to not subdivide it, now you have an existing situation, two houses on one lot. How is she gonna sell, who's gonna buy two houses on one lot?
Well,
Somebody bought 4 houses on one lot on Hoffman Road.
Oh, Buffy's?
Buffy's property,
I
yeah.
don't remember that.
I remember.
who Buffy?
Yeah.
So she sold that entire parcel?
Yes.
So the difference then is that she's not intending on selling both parcels.
Cool.
Or
No.
she's intending on keeping one and selling the other.
Correct.
So the fallback is that you're not creating a substandard lot just for the point of making money because you want to sell all of it, which is what they wanted to do with 4 lots. They wanted to subdivide it and sell 4 lots strictly for profit. They
Right, it
weren't
wasn't,
going to retain.
it was an inheritance.
And they weren't going to retain it.
Right.
At least she is going to retain one of the lots and sell one of the lots. It's not like she's just doing it because I got to do it to get rid of them and say goodbye. She's going to keep it.
No, I realize that.
So-
She's an elderly lady, there's also issues here that she
Right,
can't.
that she can't afford it.
She can't
And I
maintain it.
certainly don't want her to have to leave town because of it.
It's
Yeah.
just, this is a different precedent.
Right,
So
but it
I
is,
see the way we're headed.
it is a dangerous precedent that we're setting because we already did this Zerinsky thing. Right there. And now it's this one. And what is it next time?
Well-
This is a subdivision, so.
The thing that we could do, and I'm not telling the board what to do at all, but put a condition in it that this is being approved if you decide to do so, because of the surrounding lots being undersized and this being the largest in the subdivision,
Yeah.
you know? So then that will give you some teeth in the future if this comes up.
Okay.
It's a line on a map. Nothing changes in reality. It's set as well.
Are there any further questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
We have to make a
We
motion.
got, yeah, we gotta send this to public
No,
hearing.
public hearing.
Gotta go to public hearing.
This is a public
This
hearing.
is a subdivision.
Subdivision.
Yeah.
Here, I have one.
Did you already move for the public hearing, John? Is that where you were going with that? Were you starting to move for the public hearing?
Yeah, I know where.
I'll second it.
You fellas want to keep those in your file?
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, Howard and Densky, have to get a variance for site plan.
So we do that first, or?
Yeah, you gotta get the variance. You can't approve site plan if there's no variance.
So, should we just wait, or do you want to review that?